Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am Andrea Wilson, and I am a local real estate professional in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And so today I'm going to be talking about top zip codes to invest in if you're looking to get started. If you're unfamiliar with the Cleveland area, it's very attractive for investors within the Cleveland, Ohio area, out of state investors, as well as out of country investors, because across the country, home prices have shot up and it's hard to find um, potential deals in areas where it will cash flow, or maybe it just fits within your budget. So in our area and some of the other parts of the Midwest of the United States still have some affordable investment opportunities. When I talk to folks out in California or New York, you may need upwards of, $500,000 to get started investing in those areas. Whereas in our Cleveland market, you can have as low as $30,000. Might even find something a little lower than that to kind of get started. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you a couple or three zip codes that I like. And I'll explain why I like those zip codes as well. So the first one is going to be 44109. This is one of my favorite zip codes just because of the upside to it and the potential that it has. So 44109 sits on Cleveland's west side of the city. So a lot of times investors come into our market and they say that they want to invest either east side of town or west side of town. It's always kind of interesting to me because, there's this notion that there's one particular area that's better than the others outside of the numbers, right? Everything always boils down to looking at the numbers to determine if there is a deal, but there's a deal that could be made on any side of town. So a lot of times you'll get folks and they're looking for east or west side of towns because that's maybe what someone told them to do. And it's interesting because a lot of times people don't even live in the area. So it's going to be managed or by someone else. And so there's opportunity everywhere. And although I'm talking about this being one of my favorite zip codes, we look for opportunities in all areas of the market. So 44109 is a area that is considered like an opportunity zone. It's a area that was identified where potential growth, where investment dollars from the city wants to be pumped into this neighborhood. And so it's kind of sits a little under the radar, just a little bit. And as folks are coming in, they can find some good opportunity there for doing various things. So again, it sits on the west side of town. It's near a major hospital for us called Metro Health Hospital. Metro Health recently is still in the process of updating and expanding the hospital. It was already a large hospital. They added on another major wing to the hospital. I do not believe that it's complete yet, but it's been several years in the making. And so when you think about what happens when any new business goes into an area, much like we see when there's like an Amazon facility going up in the area, what happens around there? Well, you have hundreds, maybe thousands of employees going into those areas that are going to need local services around it to help support them. For example, if you are in these areas, all of this staff and employees, they're going to need a place to have lunch, right? And so going into these areas and putting restaurants and businesses around the perimeter of it, folks will see the benefits of that because now the job market there has been built up and people are looking for resources and services around that area. So no different from this Metro Hospital with this expansion. So when we think about what resources are going to be needed, like I just mentioned, maybe restaurants and those type and corner stores and those resources may be needed for those areas. But one of the other things is going to be housing. When you think about all of the facilities, peoples that will be working there, when you think about all of the nurses and doctors who will need housing around this area. And in many cases, doctors and nurses have to live within a certain distance or miles around the hospital. And who likes to, have to jump on a freeway where there's traffic jams? Folks typically like to live close to where they work or as close as possible, which gives a huge opportunity for this 44109 zip code. So the other thing that makes the zip code pretty attractive is it sits near the West 25th Street that runs right into downtown Cleveland. So even if you're not working at that local hospital and you work downtown, you could take West 25th right down into downtown, and either you could take public transportation or you can drive into downtown, which makes it an easier commute for you. There is 2 communities that sit around here that's in the Cleveland area as well, that's called Ohio City and Tremont. These areas, prior to its revitalization, kind of was in the same status of where this Metro Health hospital is. And so trying to purchase from an investor standpoint in this Tremont or Ohio City area, you've kind of missed the mark. If you've heard about those areas from another investor and you're trying to get into those areas, it's very highly competitive. You've already missed that market, so you want to look for other areas. And so Ohio City will give you that. A lot of the homes in this Ohio City area are a lot older. So if you are an investor like, well, I want a home that's, of a certain age, you may not get that in the area. My husband and I had flipped a property in this particular area not too long ago, and the home was built in the 1900s there. So when you think about what the basement looks like in our area, basements are like a big thing. People like to refinish the basements to have additional living area. But in these particular areas, these are usually like cellars. We will typically see some sort of dampness in these basements, more like cellars, crawl spaces, not a space that you can pretty much utilize for extended living areas. In fact, the washer and dryer setups are usually on the second or first and second floor in these homes, just because of the dampness that these basements will bring, or the small quarters of the basement. But definitely nothing to be afraid of. These homes can tend to be a lot larger just because they are so old. Some very beautiful structure to the home, old styles. The house that we had done had 10-foot ceilings in there. So it made it real open, nice layout, very large. So something to think about. So again, that 44109 will have a mix. We see new construction homes being developed into these neighborhoods. We see a combination of multifamily homes and single family homes. If I were into hosting Airbnbs, this is definitely an area that I would also consider to have an Airbnb. Again, because the hospitals are there. I think about nurses who need a place to stay, coming in and out of town, traveling nurses, or maybe even those, I don't think they're for the nurses, they're called boarding houses, but where they rent the rooms there, and maybe even an Airbnb, because people need to sometimes need a place to stay while visiting their families. So that's going to be my first pick, that 44109 zip code. The second zip code I'm going to go with is 44105. Now, this zip code sits on the east side of Cleveland, kind of like that Union Miles neighborhood. A very older community, again, that's over there. So the 44105, I talked to lots of people that may have a lower budget or smaller budget, and they're just trying to either get started or just don't have a large pile of money to kind of invest in real estate, I would say to look at the 44105 neighborhood. There's lots of things happening in this neighborhood, lots of development plans that are going on in this area as well. And we tend to see the initial budget or the point of entry into the real estate investor market a little less expensive for one to get in. You can easily find something in this neighborhood for $30,000, $40,000, and have to put, I don't know, another 50 to 60 into it. And then if you want to do a fix and flip on this property, you probably are sitting no more than, 110, 120 on the sale price. So this is a community that maybe I wouldn't focus on like fix and flips in there unless the numbers really shaked out on what you could purchase it for and the renovations. But this would be a community I would focus in on if you're seeking to build a rental portfolio, because you could purchase the property. The renovations on a rental property is not as much as required than if you were to fix and flip the property, and then you'll turn around and get decent rents. Rents right now in our area, especially if you decide to use housing vouchers, are pretty high right now, like crazy amounts. Like a lot of our single family homes are even collecting $1,200, $1,300 in some of these places. And so 44105 would also give a great opportunity for a beginner investor or an investor with a smaller budget, just looking for some monthly cash flow to bring in. You can do that. I do think that in the long term, we're still a little ways from there. The community, that Union Miles community there, is working and pushing to do a lot in this community to kind of revitalize it. They have some funding that's going to come in. They have some new construction that's coming in. They're doing some business storefronts in one of their main corridors within this community that will help increase values. They also have programs from homeowners that can utilize to, like, for porches and roofs and different things like that. So I definitely feel that down the line that we will start to see an increase in valuations in this neighborhood. So it's not like a bad thing where if you buy it now, the values are not going to increase. They're doing a really good job with building up that community. So and definitely a place to look at. The last zip code I'm going to touch on in this video is going to be 44128. This is another one of my favorite zip codes. This is known as the Lee and Harvard neighborhood. Lee and Harvard, that's 44128. Just know all of these zip codes that I'm giving you tend to dip into other communities and some of them into some suburb areas. So you want to pay close attention to the map. But in this Lee and Harvard neighborhood, I like to call it more so like a legacy neighborhood. What I mean by that is a lot of the homeowners in this community are like the original owners, or the property has been passed down through their family and they kind of have held onto it over the years. So when you have that type of lineage going through a community like that, there's a certain level of pride of ownership in the community, which when people keep up with cutting the grass and planting flowers and maintaining the outside of their home, it increases the overall values of the community. It also brings a community that cares and looking out for their neighbors and they know the people on the street, right? We don't see that as much these days. In a lot of communities, everyone is just so busy and kind of keeps to themselves. But in like this 44128, we still see a lot of that neighborly experience. And so when you have a rental property that sits amongst these homeowners, it helps increase the value of your property. And you always keep like eyes and ears, because trust and believe, when you're in one of these communities and your tenant is acting up, these neighbors are going to call you, report on that on the tenants that are there, and keep you informed. So because of this, the values hold very strong in this community, and we tend to see this increase, to constantly increase. Now, if you can find a property that fits the budget where you purchase and the renovation costs, there's a lot of great opportunity in this neighborhood as well if you're thinking about doing a fix and flip property. Again, that Lee and Harvard area, what's also nice about this area is that it has a shopping strip. So grocery store is nearby, restaurants are nearby, and it's kind of sits close to a street called Lee Road that gets you quick access over to the highway. So those are my top 3 picks for zip codes to dig deeper into, look into if you're looking to get started investing in the Cleveland, Ohio market. If you would like more zip codes to look at, or you want me to kind of give a explanation or valuation of a zip code in our area, please let me know. I'm happy to do so. My name is Andrea Wilson. I'm a real estate professional. I am duly licensed as a real estate broker at a company called Brickhouse Realty here in the Cleveland market. And I'm also a licensed mortgage loan officer. So we do all things real estate here. We're like a one-stop shop resource for you. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or get started in investing, we would love to talk to you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure that you subscribe to get more information from me. I am on here on a regular basis, providing you all of your real estate information. Bye-bye.